Hello my friends, welcome to another video and a market recap video at that. If you are new here, my name is Chris and I make videos about my small business, the Enchanted Skein. I started my business last year and last year I did 2 markets, so this is my 3rd market ever and my first market in the springtime. For this video, I'm going to structure it just like I did the last 2. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the market itself, then we'll get into everything I brought, how many, what I was selling it for, how many sold or didn't sell. Then I will go through my totals as far as total sales, fees, and things like that that have come out. And then I will give you kind of my afterthought of the market and whether or not I plan to do it again next year. I'm going to have my computer in front of me for reference for some of these things, so if I'm looking down, that's what that's for. This event was called the Spring Craft Fair of West Palm, and it was hosted by POTTC Events. I'll link them below. They're really great with all of their vendors. I've had a good experience with the 2 markets that I've done with them so far. So if you're in the South Florida area, I think they go kind of from South Florida through mid to North Florida. And when I say South Florida, I think West Palm Beach is the furthest south that they go. So it's about an hour north of a drive for me from where I'm located, but well worth it. It's hosted inside of an expo center, so love the indoors and the AC. And it was on from 10 to 4 on Saturday and on Sunday, and it is a ticketed event, so people do pay $7 at the door to come inside. I do like that approach because sometimes at the craft fairs where people can just come by for free, they do that just to kind of get out of the house, kill some time, that sort of thing. It seems almost like when people are paying to get in the door, they're there to hunt for something. Like they want to come in and their intent is to come away with something. We were able to come in on Friday and do setup from 12:30 to 5. Mr. Skein happened to be on spring break. He's a teacher, so he was off for the day. I had taken the day off, so we decided to go ahead and head up there and set up the structure of everything. At this event, you can bring your actual tent, but you do have to take the roof off of it. I do like to put the shears up on the side with the fairy lights. It kind of creates a little bit of a boundary, but it also still feels light and kind of airy. So we got the entire booth structure set up with all of the tables, tablecloths, all of the display pieces and everything like that, and then headed out. On the first day of the event, you can come in, I want to say it's 2.5 hours before the event. We planned to just get there an hour and a half early to kind of set up the plushies. One thing I did differently this time than I did before is I had mentioned I had these sections that I wanted to do and kind of make the table an experience. And I ended up packaging the plushies according to that. So what I did is I kind of drew out on my iPad here, you can see the areas of the table and where I wanted things. And I divided it into 4 sections and I put the plushies for those particular sections in a specific bag. This way, when it was time to set up the morning of, we came in, I set the bags in the areas that they went. It was really helpful because Mr. Skein could also just pull stuff out and put it in the area, and we knew the plushies were in the right place. Last time that I had a market, it was kind of like just digging into the bag and it's like, this one goes over here, this one goes over here, I want this one over here. I didn't have that, and it made setup so much smoother for me this time around. So I don't know if you're as anal retentive as I am and wanting your stuff in specific places, but if you do, you might want to consider plopping them in bags dedicated to those spots. About 20 minutes before the market started, I decided to take a little walk around to check out all the other booths and see what the lay of the land was. It basically solidified my thought that this market was not going to be anywhere near as big as the market that I did with them in the fall. You could tell that there were fewer vendors, they were spaced a lot more apart, the aisles were wider, and there was an entire section of the expo center that was just kind of blocked off without any vendors. So I knew that in that moment, I kind of had that feeling to begin with that a spring market might be smaller, but I knew after taking this little tour here that it was going to be a lot smaller than even I was maybe anticipating. In my travels around the space, I did find that there were a couple of other places that had like little sections of kind of that whole Temu keychain crochet stuff, unfortunately. But there were two main booths aside from mine that did specifically, amigurumi crochet plushies. One of which I popped by a couple of times and was not able to meet the person who did the work. And then the other one is run by Lorena, who actually watches the channel. So hi, Lorena. And what was cool about it was, even though there were these two other crocheters, we all kind of had a different vibe. So there is some overlap at all times, I think, when it comes to like, I have splooters, she has splooters, that kind of thing. But for the most part, we had different styles, and it worked out really well because it didn't feel like competition and it gave more variety to the people who were shopping. All right, let's get into what I brought and what I sold. I forgot to mention earlier, I do leave timestamps in the description below. So if you don't want to hear me rattle off each individual item, you can skip ahead to the totals. All right, let's get started. This is in no particular order. It's kind of just what my spreadsheet spit out when I pulled out the inventory and what's sold. So I'm going to pop pictures up and let you know how many of the item I brought. They might have varied colors, but I'm not going to get into that because the list is long enough. And then I'll let you know how much I was charging for each item, how many I brought, and how many I sold. When I go over these, I'm not going to mention all of the pattern designers. I've done that as I've had my videos where I've made them, but I will link to my pattern list in the description. First up were Mushroom Friends. I brought 3 of these. I was selling them for $15, none sold. I had a Reggie the Frog. He got lots of laughs and giggles. I was selling him for $10. He did not sell. I brought 3 of the classic Mushy Pops for $7, none sold. I brought 2 of the old school Mushy Boys for $8 and none of those sold. I'm going to actually be moving away from the standard Mushy Boys and going more towards the Mushroom Friends style, because I did notice that once I showed people that the Mushroom Friends had the popping top, they would tug on the Mushy Boy. It was like, it's not going anywhere. So I think it's a little less appealing, and I just like the style better. So just a side note. I brought 1 small opossum for $8. He did not sell. I had 6 of the Tush Toads for $10. 1 of those sold. I had 4 opossums for $12 in kind of my medium size. 1 of those sold. I had a chanterelle mushroom friend for $18. He did not sell. I had a frogderick. He was $18 and he sold. I should have brought more of him. I actually started making more and I got stuck. I lost yarn chicken, but I know I would have sold more of him if I had more. I brought 1 jumbo opossum for $18. He did not sell. I had 2 of the mushroom dolls, 1 with a red cap, 1 with an orange, for $30. They did not sell. I had 5 axolotls in various colors for $10 each, and 2 of those sold. I had 4 of the swirly snakes for $12, and 3 of those sold. I had 10 of the small rats for $8, 1 sold, 10 large rats for $12, and 1 sold. I did not have all 20 of them out. That was the thing I had the most quantity of, and I did not put them all out. It would have looked like a complete rat infestation, but I did have them with me just in case. I had Lily the axolotl for $30 and she did not sell. I had a Lily popping frog for $10. It did not sell. I had the popping frog on the mushroom top for $12. It did not sell. I had 2 small squirrels for $10 and they did not sell. I had my flying squirrel for $22 and that sold. And the person who bought that was super excited because she actually has sugar gliders, so she thought it was super cool. I had Fen the fox for $30 and he sold. I had Beans the splooting bunny, 2 of those for $30, 1 in gray and 1 in multicolor. Both of those sold. I had my neon Stella dragon for $22 and that sold. When it comes to my minis, I had roughly 5 to 8 of each, so I'll just run through what they all are and how many sold. And this time around, I included my googly-eyed monsters in the minis bin. I was originally charging $7 for those because I was telling myself I needed to up the price because of the cost of the little rings, but they're actually really not all that expensive. And I looked at the numbers and I was still making a good enough profit at $5, so I tossed them in the minis bin because it was also looking a little light. So we'll go through those. I had frogs, which I sold 4 of, mini opossums, 5 of those sold, chickens, 5 of those sold, axolotls, 2 sold, capybaras, 6 sold, rats, 3 sold, bees, 4 sold, and 4 googly-eyed monsters sold. And if I forgot to mention it, those are all $5. I had my baby dragon that looked like it was wearing pants, and that found its forever home at $22. I had a Darth the Splooting Dragon for $30 that did not sell. I had a little Will for $35 that did not sell. I had a Spark the Dragon for $12 that did not sell. I had 2 of my shelf dragons, one in purple and one in red. The purple sold, both of those were $30. I had 2 of the Fiona flower dolls for $18, neither sold. I had a Una the Splooting Unicorn for $30 and it did not sell. I had 1 small monster friend for $15 that did not sell and 2 larger monster friends for $18 that did not sell. I had 3 baby goblins for $18 that did not sell. I had a Mothman for $10, did not sell. I had 6 wisps with the glow eyes for $12 and one of those sold. I had an alien for $12 that did not sell. I had 1 small sprite and 2 larger wood sprites. The small was $7, the 2 larger were $12. None of those sold. My mystery bag charms, this was interesting. Those are $12 each. Those flew. I ran out of them at my first market. At this market, no one even glanced. I think there was like maybe 1 or 2 people that were like, oh, look, mystery charms, and set them right back down. So I'm debating changing some things up for those, but we'll circle back to that. I had my Freya, the Light Up Forest Guardian, for $65. She did not sell. I had a little sign that said, I light up, that I brought the second day around, and a lot of people got oohs and ahs out of her, but she did not sell, which I did not expect. She's expensive at $65. Then I had my plant friends. These are all $18. I had 3 of the String of Pearls. All 3 of those sold. I had 2 cactuses. 1 of those sold. And then the last one was just kind of some leaves, like a fern type of plant, and it did not sell. I had a pair of the lovebirds with the magnetic beaks for $25, and that sold. I had 2 Buttercup the Bees for $30. They did not sell. I had a leftover Mabel chicken for $10 that did not sell. I had 2 leftover Stardew Valley chickens for $10 and 1 of those sold. I had 4 caterpillars for $10. Those did not sell. I had 2 small owls for $8. Those did not sell. I had 5 sitting bees for $10. Those did not sell. I didn't have all of those out. I just put out 2 at a time and they didn't move anyway. I had 2 of the Monty the Moths for $12 and they did not sell. I had 3 chonky gumdrop cats for $15. They did not sell. They got a lot of attention but did not sell. I had 2 leftover loaf cats from back in the day for $15. They did not sell. I had 2 of the sitting kitties, the new pattern that I like very much. Those were $18 and the all black one sold. The tuxedo did not. If I had additional all black ones, they 100% would have sold because people asked if I had them in all black after that one was gone. I had my larger owl that had his little head on backwards incident for $22 and he sold. I had 2 of the ravens for $15. They did not sell. I had 3 dragon snugglers. 1 of those sold for $30. I had my fidget cardinal for $15. It did not sell, and actually 1 little turd of a kid yanked his legs out, so I now need to see if I can fix that. So hopefully he's not a loss and I can get it fixed. And then I had 3 googly-eyed snails. Now I will take a minute to just tell you about this one because I made these after my last videos. They were kind of last minute makes. This is a pattern by Loops and Knots Crochet for, I think it's just called Googly Eye Snail. But this was an awesome make. I loved them and they got so much attention. It was so fun to make. I just used the Amazon Rainbow Chenille yarn that I love. It feels a lot like Naughty Pony. If you're interested, I'll link it below. But I used that and just made a bunch of shells from little scrap pieces that I had. And then I made different body colors to kind of match the googly eyes that I had. So I had 3 of those for $7. 2 of them sold and people really, really liked those. So I definitely am going to be making some of those in the future. But that is everything that I brought. So as you can tell, there were a lot of things that didn't sell, but let's get into the numbers. So one thing I did differently at this market that I've never done before is I added the concept of discounts. I found that at the last couple of markets, people would offer a vendor discount. So I decided to go ahead and put a 5% discount in Square for other vendors. It's also because our vendor neighbors who have a bookish boutique, they are some of my best customers. They were at the last market and they bought a bunch of stuff this market. So I wanted to kind of do something nice and make sure that I had a discount for them. So I did do 5% off. Pro tip, if you do that, things end up needing to give change if someone pays in cash, and I had no coinage. Luckily, it was like 20 cents and she was like, just don't worry about it, because I was giving her a discount anyway. But yeah, if it's on card, it's much easier for sure. But that's why some of my numbers are going to have change, because normally in the past, everything was just an even dollar amount. But in discounts in total, I also had a discount in there for family because I knew my family was coming and I gave them the discount as well. So all in all, for discounts, it was $13.60. So I obviously am not including that in any of the numbers, but just wanted to let you know what that totaled up to. The total in sales was $680.40. Out of that, for a card was $383.60 and cash was $296.80. I also want to mention that I stopped taking Venmo. I decided that I'm going to take what Square can take, so cash and whatever the Square handheld takes. There's been a lot of weird stuff going on with scams through PayPals and Venmos and Zells and all of that stuff. And I just didn't want to bother with it. So I'm not taking that form of payment anymore. It's always going to just be card or cash. I paid $12.81 in Square fees, and I will be paying $42.95 in taxes. The booth fee was $250 for this event. It was $200 for the booth, and I paid an extra $50 for the corner. And that brings my total net to $374.64. As I mentioned, I didn't have super high expectations for this market to begin with, and that was solidified when I saw how few vendors there were. So I wasn't necessarily surprised, even though I would have liked, obviously, to have had more sales. The way I'm looking at it, was this market worth it from a dollars and cents perspective? Probably not. Would I do it again? Probably not. But I did learn a lot. I learned that I really need to do a better job of trusting my instincts and going with my gut. I knew that my vibe really lends itself better to a fall type market. I can lean into the dark and mystical, whimsical versus some of the light. I mean, I am all for a pastel rainbow. I love it. But when it comes to my makes and my aesthetic, it doesn't necessarily scream Easter. I had the two bunnies, those sold well because Easter, but this really isn't necessarily my vibe. I didn't feel it when I was there. You look around at what was being sold and it's just, yeah, I knew that going into it. I also knew that my mind was elsewhere. I mentioned in my crochet and chat video that my focus did not want to go to market prep. I had all of these other big ideas that I wanted to pour my time into, but I had to find that balance because I already signed up and I needed to make sure that I was prepared. Speaking of that, next week's video is going to kind of be a part 2 to this video because for the first time ever, not that I've done a bajillion markets, but for the first time ever, I brought crochet products to the market. Now, have I been bombarded were people breaking down my market doors for crochet products in the last 2 that I had done? No. I think maybe I've, other than the vendors that are there, had one crocheter come to the booth and mention that they crochet. So it wasn't necessarily something that was, you know, the masses were calling for that I needed to do, but it was something that I needed to do. It was something I was drawn to do. So yeah, next week's video is going to be all about the products that I brought, a new product that I developed. I have a super special announcement that I'm excited for. So I do hope you'll come back and check it out. If you have not already subscribed, please consider doing so. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up. As always, thank you so much for watching and I will see you on the next one. Bye.